Hi, I'm Boxley Llewellyn with my friend Matt here. We run a startup inside IBM, focused specifically on customer insight for retail banks. Now, we've traveled the world, 6 continents. We didn't go to Antarctica, but we talked to a lot of banks. We were listening to what they needed, and they mentioned 3 things. One, they had data, but they didn't have behavioral views. They didn't have interactions. They didn't have the sentiments of their customers to help them create insights. Second, they were looking backward nicely, but not looking forward. They weren't predicting the future events of their customers, the life events, the financial events, the propensities to buy or sell. And third, they weren't cognitive yet. They weren't learning, they weren't understanding and reasoning, although they were headed toward all of those. So we came back and built a solution that we call Customer Insight for banking. And it's very specifically targeted at several roles. Could be marketing, could be product executives, could be lines of business owners. We want to show you today a brief dashboard and demonstration of what a regional manager at a bank might ultimately want, and that is customer insight. And they would have a dashboard. That regional manager may have 10 or 20,000 customers to look at. And of course, they're always going to start with their metrics. But what they'd really love is to see metrics that are forward-looking. So our hypothetical regional manager, Harry here, has a chance to look at customer attrition, very important to them, the loss of customers, and look forward several quarters. The same way with customer acquisition, so they can look at the balance and cost and focus. Now, in addition, we might look at product sales or other metrics and try to do forward looks. What's really interesting is when you get down to the customer level. So the opportunity list that you see on the side list customers who have high propensities for something to happen. Now, how do you get there? You grab a lot of models. We found this is not a simple process. It takes a lot of different models to really understand customers. It takes predictive models. It takes models that look at financial cash flow and events. It takes a broader view to bring those models together, integrate them, and then come up with something as simple as Iona's going to leave. We need to go do something. Or in the case of our tree map here, we very easily visualize what's happening in this case, Harry's region. So mortgage churn, for instance. There are a whole number of clients that, 891, that have some risk of changing their mortgage. And therefore, our best offers and our best ideas ought to go to those clients. We look at overdraft as a very interesting one. Several banks wanted to predict overdraft to the point that they could decide which customers to reach out to and make offers and solutions. We looked at positive things too, like large deposits are predicted based on past behaviors. And behaviors is a key word here because we're not just looking at demographics. We found that the models had to start looking at behaviors and solutions that provided real value. Given that tree map, let's look at the one that Harry'd probably care about the most, and that's customer churn. Harry would say that his biggest fear is losing customers. And you would think he might get back a long list, but Harry actually wants to segment those customers further. You can't read the small print in the boxes because we didn't name the segments, because every time the solution actually goes and redoes dynamic segments. And those dynamic segments could be behavioral characteristics or behavioral plus demographic characteristics. So as we look at different elements of those segments, churn could be quite different. We can change the likelihood, our predictive scoring, but let's go dig into one of those segments. Now, I should mention as we pull up the customer list that many banks in our travels stopped us and said, just give me a piece of paper with the names of the customers that are leaving. I mean, that was very important to them. Small banks especially didn't want anything fancy. Just give me a list. I'll export that list of customers and I'll go act on it. Larger banks who had campaign management systems and doing commerce kind of solutions wanted the API, so we gave them the API as well. Others just wanted to dig down into the customers and really understand them. So maybe this customer list is what they're looking for, or maybe they're looking much deeper. So we provided all those different ways of delivering the insight. Many wanted to dig down. So let's go to Sawyer here. One of our segments, which happened to be fairly wealthy millennials. Millennials that are successful, probably fintech millennials. And that group of customers are very important to the future of the bank. So he'd hate to see us lose those customers. So we get a view of Sawyer that's very different. This really excited a group of banks who said, we'd never thought about life events in some. We'd always thought about one life event at a time. But many of those roles want to look at the total customer. And therefore, across many life events, it gives us an opportunity to look back a bit, minus 4 months, and maybe forward a bit, a prediction of 2 or 3 months. Now, sometimes the time you need is very short. On an auto loan, you need 5 minutes warning. On a mortgage, you may need 2 or 3 months warning. People also looked at groups of life events. If you see a relocation, there's probably a mortgage event coming. There may be a credit card event coming. It could be someone's retiring, and all of those factors jump in. So the combination of all of this is really the power of the solution we're talking about, where we bring together large numbers of life events and using different models, build a picture of the customer. What we've also found is every customer we go to has an idea, another use case, something to add, and so we've continued to build this on a dedicated cloud solution. So I've very quickly shown you the broader view of customer insight that we're taking. It's been a very exciting process. We've built a family, actually, of solutions. You've seen the banking one here at the last Finovate we had, I think in May. We showed a wealth management version of this, and we're also working on insurance. I also should mention we bring a number of different models in from different places. So telco does better churn models than anyone, while healthcare has interesting advisory services. So we've tried to incorporate that range of deeper analytics. And finally, using the third piece that we learned from customers, using some of our cognitive APIs, we can jump into what you may know as Watson, some of those services. We think we've got a very exciting solution. We'd love to see you come to the booth and talk more about it, and we're interested in both banks and also partnering with those who may have bits and pieces of the solution that could be quite powerful. Thank you very much.